The storm had ended, but the sky was still heavy with dark clouds. The man walked slowly across the rocky ground of an alien planet. His boots pressed into the soft red dust. Each step made a strange echo, as if the land itself was hollow beneath him. He was tired, but his eyes kept searching for shelter. Far ahead he saw it, a wide crack in the mountain wall. A cave. The air around the cave looked colder, darker, almost alive. He paused. For a moment he thought about turning back. But there was no choice. Night was coming, and this planet's night was full of dangers. He had seen shadows moving in the distance. He needed a place to hide. He stepped inside. The cave swallowed him in silence. His flashlight cut through the darkness, showing tall walls that seemed to shine with a faint glow. Strange markings were carved into the stone like symbols from another age. He touched one with his gloved hand. The wall felt warm, almost breathing. The man frowned. "Empty," he whispered. His voice echoed back to him, hollow and lonely. But as he walked deeper, the silence changed. It was no longer empty silence. It was heavy, like someone was holding their breath. His skin tightened. Something was wrong. Then he heard it, a sound, faint, fragile, almost lost in the wind. It was not a rock falling. It was not the growl of some animal. It was softer. It was crying. He froze. His light shook in his hand. His mind told him to leave, and leave before it was too late. But his heart pulled him forward. Slowly, carefully, he followed the sound. The cave twisted into narrow passages. Each turn made the crying sharper. His breath grew heavy, his chest tight. The sound was close now. It was real. He turned one last corner and stopped. There, at the end of the cave, in a small hollow, he saw her. An alien woman. Her body was thin, her skin pale like silver dust. Her arms were wrapped tightly around a small figure, a child. The child's eyes were half closed, weak, almost lifeless. The woman's face was sharp, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She looked more like a shadow than a living being. She clutched her child as if the world wanted to steal him away. The man's heart pounded. He raised his light higher. The alien mother hissed, her eyes wide with fear. She pulled the child closer, pressing him against her chest. Her breathing was fast, her body trembling. He lifted his free hand, showing he carried no weapon. "I won't hurt you," he said softly, though he knew she could not understand his words. The cave answered with silence. Only the child's weak, hungry whimper broke the air. The man knelt down slowly, carefully, to make himself small. He took off his backpack, opened it, and pulled out a food pack. He held it out, not moving closer. The smell of human rations filled the hollow space. The alien mother's eyes flicked to the food, then back to him. Suspicion burned in her stare. She was ready to fight if he came closer. But the child shifted weakly in her arms, his small mouth opening, searching for something he could not find. The man placed the food gently on the ground between them. Then he pushed it forward, just enough that it was closer to her than him. He leaned back, hands open, showing he meant no harm. For long seconds, nothing happened. The cave was frozen in silence. Then slowly, her shaking hand reached out. She snatched the food pack and pulled it close, guarding it like treasure. She tried to open it, but her hands were too weak. The man reached into his bag and pulled out a small knife. The mother stiffened, ready to shield her child. But he placed the knife flat on the ground and slid it toward her. Her eyes studied him, trying to understand. Finally, she took the knife and cut the pack open. A soft smell of food filled the air. The child stirred, his eyes opening wider, reaching for the meal. The mother fed him with trembling hands. For the first time, the man saw relief in her face. Her shoulders relaxed, her eyes softer now. She looked at him, not with trust, not yet, but with something else. A question. A hope. The man exhaled slowly. He had not realized he was holding his breath. But before he could speak, the cave answered with a new sound, a deep growl. It came from outside. The alien mother's eyes widened. Fear flashed across her face. She pressed the child against her chest again, holding him tight. The man felt the air grow colder. He turned his light toward the cave entrance. Shadows moved. Something was waiting for them in the dark. The growl echoed through the cave walls, low and threatening, like a storm hidden in the dark. The man froze where he stood. His flashlight beam shook slightly as his grip tightened. Outside, something moved against the rocks, scraping, sniffing, hunting. The alien mother pressed her child tighter against her chest. Her breathing became fast and shallow, almost panicked. She knew that sound. Her glowing eyes darted toward the entrance, then back to the man, as if trying to decide if he was an enemy or her only chance. The man lowered his light. He did not want to draw more attention. He raised one finger to his lips, the universal sign for silence. For a moment she did not move. Then slowly, with fear in her eyes, she copied him. She pressed her thin hand against her child's mouth to keep the small one quiet. The growl faded. The sound of heavy steps moved away into the night. But the danger was not gone. The man knew predators often circled back. They were testing, waiting for weakness. The silence returned, heavy and fragile. The man could hear his own heartbeat. He looked back at the alien mother. She was still watching him, tense, ready to strike if he came too close. He knelt again, making himself small. He wanted to show he was not a threat. Slowly, he placed his flashlight on the ground and slid it toward her. The glowing beam lit her face more clearly now. Her features were strange, not human at all. Her skin shimmered like faint silver under the light. Her face was sharp, her eyes large and filled with a strange glow, like stars trapped inside. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to speak but could not find the words. The child stirred weakly, reaching toward the light with tiny fingers. A soft sound left his mouth, not quite human, not quite alien. The man felt something break inside him. They were not monsters. They were not enemies. They were a mother and her child, starving, afraid, and almost forgotten. He reached again into his pack and pulled out another food pack. This time he tore it open himself. The smell of warm rations filled the small hollow. He placed it gently on the ground and pushed it toward them. The mother hesitated. Her eyes flicked between him and the food. But the child stretched his small arm, fingers trembling. The mother's lips tightened. Finally, she picked up the food. She fed the child first, then took a small bite herself. For a moment, the cave was filled with nothing but the sound of chewing. It was a fragile sound, but it felt louder than the storm outside. The man sat back, letting them eat. He did not move closer. He knew trust was a long road. As they ate, he noticed something on the cave walls again. The strange carvings. He moved his light across them. Symbols glowed faintly, like they had been burned into the rock long ago. Some looked like stars. Others looked like flowing rivers. The alien mother followed his gaze. She shifted uncomfortably as if those symbols carried painful memories. She whispered something in her own tongue. The sound was soft, musical, but broken with sadness. The man could not understand, but he listened. Then, for the first time, she looked at him directly. Her glowing eyes studied his face, his clothes, his body. She pointed at his chest, then at herself, then at her child. It was a question he understood. She was asking who he was and why he was here. The man touched his chest. "Human," he said softly. Then he pointed at her. She hesitated, then whispered a word. It was strange, heavy with sounds his tongue could not repeat. Still he nodded, repeating it clumsily. Her eyes widened slightly. It was not trust, but it was the beginning of something. A sudden sound interrupted them, the faint scrape of claws on stone. The predators were back. The man's body stiffened. He pulled a small metal rod from his pack, a weapon, though not much of one. The alien mother's eyes widened again at the sight of it. For a moment, fear returned to her face. But then she looked at the cave entrance and understood. The child whimpered softly. The man crouched low, moving toward the mouth of the cave. He turned off his flashlight, letting the darkness swallow him. He pressed his back against the cold stone and listened. Outside, something breathed. The smell of rot drifted in. A shadow shifted near the entrance, large and heavy. Another growl shook the air. The man's grip tightened on the rod. He would have to fight, but behind him he felt movement. The alien mother had stood. She still held her child close, but in her other hand she gripped a sharp piece of stone, a weapon of her own. Their eyes met in the dark. For the first time, she was not only protecting her child from him, she was standing with him, ready to face the danger outside. The growl came again, closer now. The shadows stretched across the walls. The man breathed deeply. He whispered one word, not sure if she would understand. "Together." Her glowing eyes blinked once. Then she gave a small, sharp nod. The cave entrance darkened. The predators had arrived. The cave trembled with every step outside. Stones rattled loose from the walls and rolled across the floor. The man held his breath as he listened. The predators were no longer testing. They were here, A shadow passed over the entrance, large and twisted. For a moment, the only sound was the slow scrape of claws against stone. Then came the growl again, deeper this time, shaking the ground. The man tightened his grip on the metal rod. He knew it was not enough. Against something this big, it was barely a weapon. He glanced back. The alien mother was pressed against the wall, her child hidden under her arms. But her glowing eyes did not look away. She still held the sharp stone, her body trembling yet ready. The man crouched low, signaling with his hand for her to stay silent. He edged closer to the cave mouth, moving carefully across the rocks. Outside, he could see the movement more clearly now. The predators were not just one. There were three. They were huge, their bodies bent low to the ground. Their skin was rough, dark, almost like armored plates. Long tails dragged across the dust. Their mouths opened wide, showing layers of sharp teeth that gleamed in the faint light. Their eyes glowed faintly red, hunting eyes. The man's stomach sank. These creatures were not simply hunters. They were designed for killing. The largest one sniffed the air at the cave's edge. Its long tongue slid across its teeth. The smaller two circled behind it, staying low, moving with slow patience. They knew their prey was inside. They were waiting for weakness. The man looked back at the mother and child. The child was whimpering again, too weak to stay silent. The sound was soft, but to predators it was enough. The creature's head jerked upward. Its glowing eyes narrowed toward the cave. The man's heart raced. He had seconds to act. He stepped out into the open. The predators froze, surprised. The man raised his rod high and shouted. His voice echoed across the rocks, sharp and defiant. He wanted their attention on him, not on the mother and child. The largest predator roared, a thunderous sound that shook the air. It lunged forward, claws smashing against stone. The man swung the rod with all his strength. Metal slammed against the creature's snout. It shrieked, pulling back with rage, but the other two closed in fast. Their tails lashed, their teeth snapping. The man ducked low, rolling across the ground. He scrambled back toward the cave, heart hammering. The alien mother gasped but did not scream. She pressed her child tighter against her chest. Her eyes glowed brighter, filled with fear and fire at the same time. The man stood again, raising his rod. His chest was heaving, but his eyes burned with determination. He had faced worse. He would not fall here. The largest predator roared again and charged. The man sidestepped at the last second, slamming the rod against its side. The blow rattled, but the creature's armor absorbed much of the strike. Its tail whipped around, smashing into the man's side. Pain shot through his ribs as he was thrown against the rock. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. Blood dripped from his mouth. His vision blurred, but he kept his focus. Behind him, the alien mother had moved. She set her child gently against the wall and stepped forward, clutching her stone weapon. Her body shook, but she stood beside the man. The predators circled, their growls low and hungry. The man looked at her and she looked back. They did not need words. The meaning was clear: survive or die here together. The first predator lunged again. This time the man dodged lower, sweeping the rod upward into its jaw. Bone cracked. The creature screamed, stumbling backward. The alien mother rushed forward with a cry of her own, plunging the sharp stone into its side. Black blood splattered across the ground. The predator thrashed violently, smashing against the cave wall. The mother was thrown back, but the wound was deep. The creature staggered, bleeding heavily. The man grabbed her arm, pulling her back to her feet. She stared at him, her glowing eyes wide with shock. For the first time, she had fought alongside him. The other two predators snarled, angrier now. They moved in closer, faster. The man's chest tightened. He knew they could not keep this up. Suddenly, the child let out a cry. Weak but sharp. The predators turned their heads, hearing the sound. No, the man muttered, realizing too late. The creatures began to push forward into the cave. The man's mind raced. He reached into his pack with one hand, pulling out a flare stick. He cracked it open. A blinding red light burst forth, filling the cave with firelight glow. The predators shrieked, pulling back, their eyes stinging from the brightness. The man hurled the flare outside. It landed on the rocks, blazing bright. The creatures hesitated, confused, snarling at the sudden fire. "Now!" he shouted, though she could not understand his words. But she understood his movement. Together they grabbed the child and ran deeper into the cave, past the glowing walls, away from the flare and the predator's reach. Behind them, the creatures roared with fury. Their claws scratched the stone. their growls chasing through the dark. But they did not enter. Not yet. The man and the alien mother stumbled to a stop, breathless. The child whimpered softly in her arms. The mother held him close, whispering in her strange language, her voice broken but gentle. The man leaned against the wall, blood on his lips, pain burning in his ribs. Yet when he looked at her, she was already staring at him. Their eyes met. They had survived. But the danger was not gone. The predators would return. And now he knew the truth. The cave was no safe place. The cave was silent again, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. The man leaned against the glowing wall, pain spreading through his ribs. Each breath cut sharp, but he forced himself to stay standing. His eyes kept searching the darkness behind them. He knew the predators had not gone. They were waiting. The alien mother held her child tightly. The child was trembling, his small hands gripping her arm as if afraid she would vanish. Her glowing eyes moved between the man and the cave's entrance. She had seen humans fight, and it was unlike anything she had known. He fought not with claws, not with armor, but with something else. Strategy, fire, defiance. But even that might not be enough. A low rumble shook the ground. The predators were circling back. Their growls echoed, bouncing off the stone like thunder. The man's fingers tightened on the metal rod. It was bent now, its edge stained black with blood from the wounded beast. But it was all he had. He turned to the mother. "We can't stay," he whispered, though he knew she would not understand. He pointed deeper into the cave, signaling that they needed to move. She looked at the darkness ahead, then at him. For a moment, fear held her still, but then slowly she nodded. She shifted her child on her hip and followed. They moved deeper, the glowing carvings guiding their way. The air grew colder. Strange sounds whispered from the walls, like old voices, forgotten songs. The man ignored them. He kept listening for claws, for breath, for the sound of death closing in. It came faster than he expected. A deafening roar split the silence. The largest predator forced its way inside, smashing stone with its claws. Dust and rock rained down as it squeezed through the passage. Its red eyes burned in the dark. The two smaller beasts followed, their tails thrashing, their teeth snapping. The cave was no longer a hiding place. It had become a battlefield. The man pushed the mother back. "Run!" he shouted. She did not know the word, but she understood the gesture. She clutched her child and moved further down the passage. The man stood his ground. The first predator lunged. He rolled aside, slamming the rod into its jaw. The sound cracked through the air, but the beast kept coming. Its claws scraped his shoulder, tearing through cloth and flesh. Pain seared him, but he did not stop. He swung again, this time at its eye. The beast shrieked, staggering back. The second predator darted low, snapping at his legs. He kicked hard, his boots smashing into its snout. It howled and retreated for a second. The third came from behind. The man spun, but too late. The tail slammed into his back, sending him crashing to the ground. His rod skidded across the stone, out of reach. The largest predator roared, towering over him. Its teeth glistened, its hot breath burning his skin. The man's eyes widened. He had nothing left, but then a sharp cry split the air. The alien mother. She rushed forward, stone blade in her hand. With a scream that shook even her own body, she drove the weapon into the beast's flank. The predator shrieked in pain, twisting violently. The mother was thrown aside, but the wound was deep. The man scrambled to his rod, grabbing it with bloody hands. He pushed himself up, every muscle screaming, and charged. With a roar of his own, he drove the metal straight into the predator's wounded side. The beast convulsed, its claws raking the stone. Black blood poured across the floor. It thrashed once more, then collapsed with a thunderous crash. The cave shook. Dust filled the air. The two smaller predators snarled and raged. But they hesitated. Their leader was dead. They circled the body, growling, then slowly backed away. Their glowing eyes burned with hate, but their tails lowered. With sharp, angry cries, they retreated into the darkness, vanishing back into the alien night. The cave was still. The man dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. Blood dripped from his shoulder. His ribs screamed with every inhale, but he was alive. The mother crawled toward her child, who had hidden against the wall. She pulled him close, whispering in her broken voice. The child's eyes opened wider. The cave behind them was silent, but the silence felt dangerous. The man did not look back. His ribs still burned with pain, but he pushed forward. The predators would not forget. They would return. The alien mother followed, carrying her child tightly. Her steps were unsteady, but her glowing eyes stayed sharp. She looked at the man, then at the path ahead, unsure but willing. They were strangers, yet in this deadly place they had become something more. Allies. The passage opened at last, spilling them into the alien night. The sky stretched wide and strange. A great moon glowed pale blue, filling half the heavens. Smaller stars blinked faintly, though many were hidden by clouds of green mist. The land was sharp and broken, cliffs of black stone, rivers that shimmered with faint light, and forests of twisted trees whose leaves glowed like fireflies. The man stopped, scanning the horizon. Every shadow could be danger. Every sound could be death. He pointed toward the far cliffs. "We move," he said softly, though the mother did not understand his words. Still, she followed his hand, her eyes narrowing with determination. They began to walk. The ground was uneven, covered with glowing moss. The child stirred weakly, his small fingers brushing the light as if reaching for warmth. The man slowed his pace, not wanting them to fall behind. His instincts told him this child mattered. Not just to the mother, but maybe to something larger. Hours passed. Strange calls echoed across the valley, deep haunting cries of creatures they could not see. Once they heard wings above them, huge and heavy, beating against the mist. They froze, pressing themselves under a rocky ledge until the sound faded. The mother whispered something then, words soft and fast in her own language. Her voice trembled with fear, but her hand rested firmly on her child's head. The man could not understand, but he knew what it meant. A prayer. He remembered Earth. He remembered a time when he had walked under familiar skies, where prayers were whispers against the unknown. Now he was the stranger lost under alien stars. The path led them to a glowing river. The water shimmered silver, almost like liquid glass. Strange fish darted beneath the surface, their bodies glowing faint blue. The man knelt, filling a small container. He sniffed, then tasted carefully. Bitter but not poison, he offered it to the mother. She hesitated, then gave it to her child first. The boy drank greedily, his small chest rising and falling with new strength. Relief softened her eyes. She drank after him, then handed it back. The man took the last sip. It burned his throat, but he welcomed it. Life was survival. They moved on. At nightfall, the air grew colder. The mother shivered, her thin body not built for the chill. The man gathered dry branches, breaking them with his boot. With practiced hands, he struck sparks until a small fire burned. The flames glowed orange against the black stones. The mother gasped softly. Her glowing eyes reflected the firelight, almost afraid of it. But when the child reached out, warming his hands, her fear faded. She looked at the man differently then, not as a threat, not only as an ally, but with something new. Curiosity. He sat across from her, silent. His ribs ached, his shoulder bled, but he stayed alert. The fire was warmth, but it was also danger. Flames called predators. The child fell asleep first, wrapped in his mother's arms. His breathing was soft, steady, no longer weak. The mother watched him, her eyes shining with quiet relief. Then slowly, she looked at the man. She touched her chest and whispered a word. He frowned, then pointed at himself. "Human," he said. She repeated it clumsily. "Ah, man," he nodded. Then he pointed at her. She paused, then spoke her name. It was a strange sound filled with soft tones. The man tried to repeat it, and she almost smiled. Almost. The silence stretched between them, no longer heavy with fear. The fire cracked softly, but peace was never meant to last. A sharp whistle cut through the night. The man stiffened, standing quickly. He scanned the skies. At first he saw nothing. Then when a faint red light moved across the clouds, a small shape hovered above, mechanical, not alive. A drone. It scanned the ground, its red eye glowing. The mother gasped, pulling her child close. Her eyes widened with terror. She whispered something fast, shaking her head. She knew what this meant. The man understood too. This was no predator. This was worse. Someone or something was watching them. The drone's light swept closer, scanning the fire. The man cursed under his breath. Without thinking, he grabbed a burning branch and hurled it upward. The flame struck the drone. It whirled wildly, sparks bursting across the sky. The machine sputtered, then spun into the cliffs, crashing with a sharp explosion. The silence returned, broken only by the crackle of fire. The mother stared at him, her face pale. Her eyes shone with fear, but not of him. She whispered one word, her voice trembling. The man could not understand the language, but he understood the meaning. "They are coming." The fire had burned low. Only glowing embers remained, flickering against the black stones. The man sat with his back to the cliff, his eyes fixed on the sky. He had not forgotten the drone. Whoever had sent it would not stop. Beside him, the alien mother held her child close, rocking him gently. Her eyes glowed in the dim light, not with anger, not with fear, but with a heavy sadness. She kept looking at the broken remains of the drone scattered across the rocks, as if it was not the first time she had seen such machines. The man's chest still ached from the fight in the cave. His ribs burned with every breath, but he pushed the pain away. He turned to her. "What are they?" he asked softly, though he knew she could not understand his words. He pointed at the broken machine, then at her. Her lips tightened. She looked away, silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she shifted her child onto her lap and reached under the torn cloth wrapped around her waist. From a hidden pouch, she pulled something small, wrapped in thin leather. She hesitated, her glowing eyes meeting his. She studied him, searching for something, strength, trust, maybe even mercy. Then she unwrapped the leather. Inside was an object unlike anything he had seen before. It was a shard of crystal, black and sharp, with glowing lines of blue that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The air around it seemed to hum, almost alive. The man leaned forward, stunned. His eyes locked on the artifact. "What is that?" he whispered. The mother held it carefully, almost reverently. Her voice broke the silence, whispering words in her own tongue. The sound was low, mournful, like telling a story not meant for joy but for grief. She pointed at the sky, at the stars hidden in the mist. Her words came faster, her tone rising and falling like waves. She pointed at herself, at her child, then at the glowing carvings still visible faintly on the cliffs. The man listened carefully, trying to catch the meaning through her gestures. He saw the pain in her eyes, the weight of memory pressing on her shoulders. Her people, once many, now gone. He imagined them, a tribe, a civilization, living under these strange glowing skies, building temples in caves, carving stories into stone. Then the war came. Machines fell from the sky. Predators were unleashed. Her people were hunted, destroyed, scattered. The mother pressed the shard to her chest, her voice trembling. She whispered a single name again and again. It was not her name. It was something else. A place, a people, maybe a kingdom long lost. Then she looked at him. Her eyes were sharp, filled with fire. She pressed the shard into his hand. The man stiffened at the touch. The shard was cold at first, then it grew warm. Lines of light crawled across its surface, brighter, faster, responding to him. His fingers trembled. He could feel the hum deep inside his bones, like the crystal was alive, like it was choosing him. The alien mother gasped. She pulled back, her eyes wide with shock. The shard had never done that for her. The man stared at it, his heart racing. He had no idea what it was, but he knew one thing. It was not just a relic. It was power. And it had answered to him. He looked at her. She looked back, her mouth open, her face pale. For the first time, she seemed more afraid of him than of the predators. He shook his head quickly, trying to calm her. "No," he said firmly, pressing the shard back toward her. "Yours." But she pushed it back into his hand, shaking her head violently. Her voice cracked as she spoke fast, words tumbling like broken glass. She pointed at him, then at the shard, then at the sky. Her meaning was clear even without language. "It belongs to you now." The child stirred, his small eyes blinking open. He reached out, touching the shard with his tiny hand. The blue light flared brighter, filling the night with an eerie glow. The mother's lips parted. Tears welled in her glowing eyes. She whispered something soft, almost like awe. The man swallowed hard. His fingers clenched around the crystal. He felt its pulse sinking with his own heartbeat, but before he could speak, a sound split the silence. A low rumble, not from the ground, but from the sky. The clouds above shifted. Lights appeared, distant at first, then closer. A fleet of ships, dark shapes cutting through the mist. Their engines growled like thunder, their light scanning the land. The mother cried out, pulling her child close again. Her face twisted with terror. She pointed at the ships, then at the shard, then at him. "They're looking for this," he whispered, his voice tight. He understood now. The artifact was not just history. It was the reason she was hunted. The ships spread across the sky, moving closer. The hum of their engines shook the cliffs. The man stuffed the shard into his pack, his jaw tight. He grabbed the mother's arm, urging her to move. She clutched her child and followed, her glowing eyes still wide with shock, but with something else now too, desperate hope. They ran into the dark valleys, shadows of the alien fleet crawling across the land behind them. The secret was out, and now the real hunt had begun. The sky burned with lights. The alien ships spread across the clouds like a swarm of metal predators. Their engines roared, shaking the valleys below. Search beams cut through the mist, sweeping across the rocks, hunting. The man ran hard, his boots crashing against the glowing ground. His ribs screamed with pain, but he did not stop. Behind him, the alien mother carried her child close, her breath sharp and fast. Fear filled her glowing eyes, but she kept moving. The shard pulsed inside his pack. Its blue glow leaked through the cloth, flashing like a heartbeat. Each pulse grew stronger, as if the artifact was alive, or calling to something. The mother glanced at the pack, her face pale. She knew the ships were chasing not her, not even the child, but that shard which now belonged to him. They reached a ridge overlooking a wide plain. Strange stone towers rose from the earth like broken teeth. The man stopped there, scanning the horizon. Searchlights were closing in. He had no more time to run. He turned to the mother. "Go," he said, pointing toward the cliffs far away. His voice was low but firm. "Take him, hide!" She shook her head violently. She clutched his arm, her eyes wide. She did not need words. She was saying he would die if he stayed. He pulled his arm free, shaking his head. "If I don't fight, none of us live." The mother's lips trembled. She looked at her child, then back at him. Finally, with tears in her glowing eyes, she nodded. She kissed her child's forehead, whispered something soft, then set him gently behind a rock. She stood tall again, gripping her stone blade. She was not leaving him. Not this time. The first ship dropped low. Its shadow darkened the ridge. A spotlight blazed down, blinding them. A sharp voice barked through the air, mechanical and cold, speaking in a language the man did not understand. The shard pulsed faster, almost burning inside his pack. The man yanked it out, holding it in his hand. Blue light burst across the ridge, bright and wild. The ship's engine stuttered for a moment, its lights flickering. The mother gasped, shielding her child. Her eyes shone wide with awe. The shard had never done this before. The ship fired. A blast of red energy shot toward them. Instinct took over. The man raised the shard high. The air cracked open. A shield of light exploded outward, blue and blinding. The energy blast slammed into it and shattered like glass. The shockwave tore across the rocks, hurling debris into the air. The mother cried out, covering her child. The man's arm shook under the force, but he stood tall, the shard blazing in his hand. The ship pulled back, engines roaring. Another two descended, weapons glowing. The man's breath came heavy. His vision blurred, but his eyes burned with fire. He planted his feet, lifting the shard again. "Come on," he growled. The ships opened fire together. Red blasts streaked toward the ridge. The shard flared brighter than ever, its pulse syncing with his heart. He swung it forward like a weapon, and the blasts bent in the air, curving back. The energy struck one of the ships. It exploded in fire, crashing into the plain below. The second ship swerved, engines shrieking. The third fell back, scanning in panic. The mother stared at him, her mouth open. He was human, but the shard had answered him in a way it never had for her people. The surviving ships regrouped, their lights circling. The man knew they would not stop. More would come. He could not hold forever. He turned to the mother. "Run," he said again, his voice hoarse but strong. "Take him, live." Tears streaked down her silver skin. She shook her head, whispering something broken. But she looked at her child, then at him, and she understood. She grabbed the boy, pulling him close. With one last look at the man, she turned and ran into the cliffs. The man faced the sky. His body was broken, his strength fading, but his spirit burned brighter than the shard itself. He was not a soldier, not a chosen hero. He was just human, but sometimes that was enough. The ships descended, engines roaring like thunder. The man lifted the shard one final time. Blue light erupted across the plain, brighter than the alien moon. The ground shook. The sky split. The ship screamed. When the light faded, the ridge was empty. Far away, hidden in the cliffs, the mother clutched her child. She stared at the blue glow still burning faint on the horizon. Her lips trembled. She whispered the human word she had learned, the word her child had repeated in wonder. Hero. The child's small hand reached up, touching her face. His eyes, weak but alive, shone with a new fire. They looked at the stars together. The night was still dangerous, the future uncertain, but now there was something new. Hope. The mother closed her eyes, whispering one last thought, not in her language, but in his. Humans are different. And somewhere in the silence of the broken sky, the legend of one human began.